All right.
Alright.
So, me and you both got incredibly excited, Aaron, because Shaft has now entered its, what is it, fifth installment?
Yes, the fifth entry in the Shaft franchise.
Yep. There's Shaft 1, then there's, is it Shaft's Big Score?
Shaft's Big Score,
And
Shaft
then
in
number
Africa,
3, Shaft in Africa, of course.
and then it goes Shaft,
And now once again, Shaft.
Shaft the Third, which actually
Shaft the
contains a
Third.
character called Shaft the Third. And
I
Shaft the
thought that
Second.
was really
Actually,
clever.
before we begin, what are we going to call each of them? So we've got
Yeah, I can go with Old Man Shaft slash Shaft Senior, and
Shaft
then
Senior?
Shaft, and then Shaft Junior.
Oh, that's effortless. No, I like that. That's better.
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to go for, Bitch Shaft. For the youngest
Bitch
one.
Shaft or Cuck Shaft.
Cook
or
Shaft. Because this film is very explicit in what it thinks of its main character. Doesn't like its main character.
It really hates him. I think, yeah. So before we proceed, most important piece of information about this movie: Tomatometer on Rotten Tomatoes, critic review 32%, audience review 94%, which is enormously disparate.
It's the biggest
And-
gulf I've seen in a while. I can't think of a bigger one.
I think the last time I saw a gulf that big was between Hail Caesar's high critic review and low audience review, so this is a brilliant switch on that. I think that me and Aaron can safely say that we find ourselves
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud.
comfortably on the
I'm
audience
proud to
score
be.
side.
This is like my I am Spartacus moment. I'm proud to be on the fucking 94%.
Proud to be
Fuck.
an American.
Fuck though that 30. Well, no, fuck that 70% of critics who looked at this and was just like, it's not very good. There's a growing gulf between films that are successful, like the Venom film, like that got like 90%,
Yes.
and like 20% critically, and I feel like maybe there is just a growing gulf between what critics find acceptable and what audiences find acceptable. And hey, I guess maybe this is good. Maybe we're falling on the audience side for once. We can be cool.
Exactly. We are incredibly cool. We are incredibly cool watching, a 70-year-old man and a 76-year-old man and another man running around telling us why political correctness is bad. So here's the thing about this movie.
It's a Trumpian film. It's a
It
film
is
for-
it's an explicitly Trumpian film, and I think it's been very interesting for me as a white dude from England watching kind of what I think would be kind of the inheritor of a very important piece of black cinema really show itself as having kind of MAGA politics. And the negative reviews for this movie have pointed out a bunch of things that they think are evil about it, like how it's really anti-millennial, it's sexist, it is homophobic, it does have some kind of like light transphobia in it. But the thing is they conclude from this that it's some kind of piece of like Nazi propaganda. And while all of those things are bad, and I definitely wasn't agreeing with them, I think that you'll probably side with me, Aaron, in saying that it just made this ridiculous movie even more entertaining. Like it's not going to change any minds. No one's going to watch this and like feel bolstered. It's like a death rattle. It was hilarious. I was pissing myself.
No, I entirely agree. I think it's like this politics of sort of like absolutist moralizing that has occurred recently, where if the characters aren't like immediately punished for expressing bad reviews, it's a bad film, and there can be no like redemption there. And it's
Of course.
fucking, if you've got characters from the 70s, then make them have the views of people from the 70s. And you
Definitely.
don't need to like lay. I know that they're bad, and if someone else doesn't, then that's on them. Like that's fine. I don't need the Shaft film to educate me or others about homophobia.
I wasn't like browsing my finger across my bookshelf, and I didn't pass over like the Communist Manifesto and like the second sex and the female eunuch and then land on Shaft and be like, yes, this will be my political education. Like, that's not what happened. And it's not like the original Shaft or any of the kind of original popular blaxploitation movies actually had politics that endure.
Some of
they
the
were all
most
about
aggressive films I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, they were all about like unapologetic, like woman slapping, drug dealing, chauvinistic bastards who like kill people who get in their way, and like that's fine because that's what people chose to make. That's how they chose to express themselves. If you're going to go for it, you should go for that which motivated people to express themselves in that way, rather than the expression. So
Definitely, and I mean, you had a character who didn't believe in that, and it was the youngest character, and of course there was a clash. Like, he didn't like their way of living, they didn't like his, and so they talked about it. And amazingly, the characters who come from a homophobic era talked in homophobic language. We didn't agree with them. It was fucking hilarious what they were saying, but it wasn't like, oh man, you know what? I agree with Shaft. Like, I should really start never apologizing to women.
It was just it started and then it just would not stop. Like, I think when he was talking about when young Shaft was talking to Shaft about the charity that his dead mate was involved in. It was called, what was it, like Men Watching Men or something?
Brothers Watching Brothers.
Yeah, and he was just like, are you sure he wasn't a gay lord?
Sounds pretty homosexual to me. Is this why you're a homosexual? He's like, please don't use the H word. He's like, I'll use whatever word I goddamn want. It rang surprisingly true for a film about, like a 70s version, a 70s black James Bond, because those are conversations you have to have with older people, and it's just...
I'm looking back through the notes, and one of the things that I wrote, according to Shaft, as in Samuel L. Jackson Shaft, liberalism is not black, and yeah, it's just, but when they talk about human rights violations, he just thinks that's really, really hilarious.
Yeah, he has no issue with sort of like harming people.
No, none at all. Extorting them as well. And yeah, transphobia, like the transphobia, it wasn't just Shaft, it was also the director guy at the FBI goes through a power of 3, not a Sonnenfeld power of 4, but a power of 3 list of things that are wrong with his work and personal life. That's terrorists, heroin, a 6-year-old girl who wants him to call her Frank.
Yep,
and
it's a beautiful little, and I think that's like the first hint I got in this film. I think that's before any of the major generational clashes have emerged, and that was a good indication of how this was going to go down.
I was just like, wow, they're really going to go there. Once again, Hillary Clinton. I do not think that these are, these are not political viewpoints that I would endorse.
No, not
but
at all.
It was hilarious seeing kind of the liberal orthodoxy of, mainstream Hollywood cinema broken through and having people reflect these things just for the novelty of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like fucking like a 40, 50-year-old white guy probably, if you take a handful of them, probably half of them won't give a shit. They'll understand it. And that's fine. I was like, oh, look, an actual character. It humanized him in the weirdest way a lot more, any other throwaway statement at the end of a Rule of 3 could have.
There's a gag that's exactly the same in a movie from 10 years ago. So it's from the movie The Other Guys. Have you seen it?
Yes, I have.
So you know how Michael Keaton is the captain, and he's just like, I work this job, and then I work another job at Bed Bath & Beyond because I'm putting my kid through college, and he says his kid is a DJ and he's bisexual. And it's like, it's not that it's right, but you can so tell that this is some really tired, like, working class guy who's made himself up to like a middle class income and just does not understand why his child is doing what his child is doing.
Yeah.
And you are right in what you say.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh man, so that guy's got some shit going on. I officially recognize him as a character, as a human being, because he has a controversial opinion that isn't necessarily reflected by society, but equally he is a 50-year-old man working for the FBI, so perhaps he's not the most progressive man in the world.
he's the illiberal boss that you've had like 16 times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it, and I liked how much like my own father, even though my own father is not Shaft, middle Shaft, Samuel L. Jackson Shaft, kept imbuing his son with qualities that he did not actually have, such as being non-binary, genderqueer, or having a bisexual roommate. Just all of these things that weren't actually true, he just accused him of having.
I loved the things that he assumed. Like he assumed where he shopped, who he dated, everything. Like just constant judging. And again, it made him feel like a father. It was just like, oh, this is a man who has a vested interest in another man who he has nothing in common with, and there are obviously clashes occur when that happens. I've seen a lot of people judge this for Samuel L. Jackson saying that it's his mother being raised by a single mother that has made him like this.
Yeah.
Which is again just ridiculous. Like this is he's never presented as right.
Normally, like the pattern for these things. So this is why I wouldn't say that I respect the movie, but I'm quite entertained by it. Is the cookie cutter pattern for a movie like this is, he comes in as the illiberal father, or, whatever, someone who has a contrasting viewpoint to his millennial cuckold son. And basically, the son learns something from his point of view, and then there'll be a moment in the later point of the movie where the son will do something that the father would be impressed by, but then also later the father does something that the son would be impressed by. Say, like, sneaks into, like, an undercover situation by talking about, I don't fucking know, Mary Wollstonecraft or something.
Yeah,
but
like Lord of the Rings, he's just like, I love that Frodo motherfucker. Like...
and yet this never happens. Like, other than at one point, Shaft, middle Shaft, Sam Jackson Shaft, decides that even though he said that men never apologise to women before millennials came along with their feelings, he will actually apologise to his ex-wife. Like, he does that, but he never, like, wheels back on his homophobia.
Nope,
He never wheels back on his transphobia.
Never apologizes for like viewing many of his son's life choices as homosexual. Never stops questioning his son's homosexual credentials. Never stops objectifying women. One of his last lines in the film is to call his ex-wife, the mother of his child, a piece of pussy. Like, it's just, yeah, he's not redeemed. There is not in the way that the liberal orthodoxy would want a character like this to be redeemed. Like, they would want Shaft to go, "Oh son, I have seen the error of my ways, and I will now respect women forever.
I'm going to take a class in intersectionality.
Yeah,
I'm going to have to walk it back one more time and remind Hillary Clinton, who is always listening, we do not endorse these views. They're actually kind of, they run opposite to what we tend to think. But it was, like, why do people... people just seem so annoyed, like, in the RogerEbert.com review, like, obviously, because these people need to cash in on the name of a dead man. They seemed really annoyed that this exists, and it's like, well, of course this exists, because you haven't won these conversations with people yet, because you've never even tried. So,
yeah,
like, of course this revivalist, 80s Reaganite kind of attitude movie is eventually going to sneak out on Netflix, and of course it's going to have someone as famous as Samuel L. Jackson in it.
Fuck, I hope this generates more of a conversation about this, more of an interesting conversation about this than any sort of fucking, like, sterilized cookie cutter liberal bullshit they could have put out. Like, I don't want to see the generational film where some guy they've approximated like a boogeyman of 70s values is put forward with no redeemable features until he accepts it. Like, that's the thing. Shaft has these horrible views. He's also a pretty good guy at points. Like, he saves people. He has no tolerance on crime.
Cares about kids.
He doesn't want people throwing guns out the window because it hurts kids. Like,
kids live out there.
He's an actual character who has vices and flaws and plus sides, not lived his life entirely right, and he's aware of it, and that's fine.
Well, I think it's really interesting because this is a movie that was written and directed, by black people. It doesn't, there's a lot of critics who are kind of seething at it, as we can see, from like the Rotten Tomatoes score, about specifically its liberalism. They don't really talk about the structure or the plot, even though you could probably say that technically the movie is full of like really clunky expository dialogue. But that's never what they criticise. They criticise the politics, and it's like, well, maybe this should remind you that there are people out there, sometimes it's the people who you tend to use as political footballs, who actually have views that are completely opposite to your own. And maybe you really need to think about that, because otherwise the gulf will just get larger. Because yeah, this was an expression about how people felt about generational differences in their community's politics. And even though I thought it was hilarious how much it was really a top-down bagging, once again,
we're the people who should be offended by this, because we hold many of the views that were being bagged on. It's like,
exactly.
Both of us are Lord of the Rings loving cucks.
Yes, we are.
Samuel L. Jackson would walk in and would straight up slap our shit all over the place, and it's like, yeah, that's funny, because I don't want to live in a bubble where I'm fucking protected all the time. I can take people not agreeing with me, and I find it quite funny at points, especially when they come from different fucking backgrounds. That's just the nature of fucking conflict in a story. And also without the obligatory 20-minute scene where Shaft goes to college Samuel L. Jackson Shaft goes to college to learn about all the bad things he's done. And he's like, well, like that bit in fucking 22 Jump Street where Channing Tatum is like, I've been using a lot of homophobic language towards you, and I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that never happens. Doesn't need to.
No, of course, because I'm not gonna throw fucking 70-year-old ex-Black Panther Samuel L. Jackson through this fucking ringer. Like, I don't want to see it happen, and he doesn't want to go through it. So
yeah.
The audience and the actor aren't into it.
I fucking props to him for taking this. He was like, oh, what did you mean I get to bag on all the things I hate about my punk-ass grandson, my actual punk-ass grandson, but in a script? Like, I bet he's gone through half of these conversations, made it endearing, made it stand out. Like, it made what should have otherwise been quite a trite remake of a long-dead franchise into, an interesting generational piece of our time.
Just, like I thought I was going to enjoy it, but completely at its expense. However, it was a ridiculous movie. It was a ridiculous movie that it was really, really shooting at me. And even though I didn't agree with what it was saying, I just thought it was very, very funny. It wasn't good, but you know what? I will say, and this is always the thing that I go for something that was almost 2 hours long, I was really surprised that I was okay with it continuing as it did.
There's a couple of flaws. I would say that, well, there's quite a few flaws, but I think a few things that were easily improved. And I think Shaft needed to be in it more. He's like barely in Shaft 2000, and he's barely in this. Like, he's like the last 20 minutes, maybe, generously, 15 minutes, he rocks up. But it works, and like those 15 minutes are golden, and I would have gladly taken double that, if not more. I think perhaps he's a little old. Maybe he can't shoot prolonged scenes anymore. Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson. Then again, as we said, there's only 6 years between him and his son.
It's fucking crazy.
Which is mad in terms of how, like, Samuel L. Jackson can still quite easily play just quite a grouchy 50-year-old in his 70s. He's moving a lot better, as we said, than he was in Captain Marvel. Maybe it's because he's not in a piece of whittled down liberal trash.
Yeah, capitalist trash.
Maybe he gets rejuvenated when he's like saying things he believes in. Not just going
like virulent, like Islamophobia, as he does ape in this movie.
Oh, that's a great line. That's fine. Let's go through some great lines. At one point, his Shaft Jr. goes Jesus, and then Samuel L. Jackson Shaft delights in saying, "No, Allah."
No, that's Allah. Yes, in one of the clunkier but more endearing lines.
Yeah, it's just a dad joke. It's an actual dad joke. It's really funny.
You know what I really liked? This was in the montage at the beginning that took you through from 1993.
I called this the Cuck time passing montage.
Yes, because it was 93 to 2019, and obviously they played the song 93 to infinity, and like the things they were focusing on, it was just like Bill Clinton, and then like the hide your kids, hide your wife.
I've got that down. Hide your kids, hide your wife.
And then into Obama. And it was like, and that was what happened in that time frame, and I was like, okay, 25 years.
Yeah, it was like, I thought that was a really lacking montage. I mean, basically all it existed is to show that he continued to send Christmas presents of like varying quality, including like Magnus-sized condoms.
I knew that they were never going to do this, but because obviously, he sends him the Magnum extra large condoms, and he's obviously a bit surprised. I was thinking that they have this whole thing where they keep alluding to the fact that all of the Shafts have massive knobs, and I thought it would have been a funny and brave decision to have a scene in the movie where, in no uncertain terms, Shaft Jr. explains that he does not have a massive knob. He has.
That would have been amazing.
He's like, why didn't you, like he finds the unopened box of condoms in the room when like Shaft Jr. is passed out drunk. He's like, oh, what? Why didn't you use these? It's like, have you never had sex? It's like, oh, I've had sex. I just can't use those because they're like bin bags.
Oh, that would have actually been really funny. Or like his trousers fall down, it's like facing from behind, and you just see like Shaft Samuel L. Jackson's Shaft just completely disgusted.
Oh, hell no.
Yeah, no, I do love that loads of the jokes are just that his name is Shaft still, and that they're all called Shaft.
We were discussing this today, how at times they would, obviously it's meant as an innuendo, and like it's used on all the posters.
But it's also meant as like the cultural landmark that it has become.
And that's a problem, because sometimes where they're saying like, oh, you just got shafted, what they're meaning is kind of like, oh, he just slapped you up with his enormous penis, technically or figuratively. However, when she's referring to her son, despite having kept him away from Shaft Middle for several years, she's like, oh, he's still got the shaft in him. And yeah, I'm a child, and I'm like, what? He has a big dick inside of him, inside his butthole. You've
kind of got to establish what the word shaft means, and in this one, it's definitely like it's a man's surname, but it also refers to just his giant dick, and that's fine. And I don't know what people were expecting for a film where that's the subtext. Other great scenes, I think, that I really enjoyed was white people don't even listen to this shit, when he turns on like his weird...
That was a good one. I can confirm that white people don't even listen to that shit.
Hell no. Oh, there was a couple of weird bits actually. I thought it was weird that like in the beginning bit with that FBI agent, they were like, again, I think this is probably like sort of indicating that the film actually wasn't that good when it came to like the just the story parts of its screenplay. Like there's a bit where he's like asking to be given a chance, and like out of nowhere he engages in like the coach rookie sort of like, I'm ready coach, put me on the field mentality, where up until
he actually says that line as well.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
says, I'm ready coach, put me in.
It's not only is it like a cliche, but it's also kind of clashing with his character, because as far as we tell, he doesn't give a shit about sports. and like it's been pretty determined that he's like a nerd. That didn't really gel with me. And there's a couple of moments like that, but there's also quite a couple of alright moments. Like the central mystery is not entirely straightforward. Like it's fairly basic, but it's alright. Like there's the sum of money that was donated to the mosque from the supermarket, and that is actually like a moderately compelling reason as to why that would have occurred. I thought it was funny that they give Shaft Junior the not gaze very quickly, because to begin with, in that little montage where Kareem, his friend, punches the boy out for him and like they hang out, I honestly thought he was going to be gay, and then like they quickly established that he likes the girl.
Absolutely. They had to do that, of course.
Well, I guess because I didn't realize at that point they were going to spend the rest of the film calling him gay.
Yeah. I really liked what you said about the plot there. The thing is with a lot of these movies, sometimes they'll have like an overly complicated plot, and this actually happens with a lot of Shane Black movies that I enjoy, where it's just like, just dial it back. It doesn't need to have that many beats because your audience does not care that much. Like it needs to work, but it needs to be simple. So I appreciated that about it.
Yeah, I also thought that it largely, like, every part of the mystery facilitated a joke. Like there was the Manny bit, which like showed how feared Shaft is and respected still. And then there was the equal opportunities ass whooping like Mexican woman scene, which worked quite well. And then there was the brothers watching brothers, which in turn was like a really funny joke. So it was like, there were enough steps in it for it to feel like an actual mystery they were solving, if admittedly quite a basic one. And there were also, each one of them was a joke. So there was one bit I actually really objected to, which is sort of like, I guess, a bit of a distance between dialogue and action, where he says to the girl that he doesn't own a gun. She's like, even I own a gun. And then when there's a shootout, the gun adverse Shaft Jr. grabs the gun from the woman who owns it and starts using it rather than her using it. I thought that was a bit strange. I guess it's because he's the main character, but it was just like, well, why wouldn't she use her own gun?
That was the thing. They were doing that thing that they did several times where they were trying to establish that in at least part of his personality, he didn't like doing things, but he was really good at doing them when pressed. But you're right, according to the movie, he was in the presence of someone who not only was trained in using a gun, but actually enjoyed doing it. So
she said she was exercising her First Amendment rights, and then the joke is that she's got that wrong, but it seemed like a really
freedom of speech
pointless joke, because I thought it would have just been nicer to have her actually be kind of obsessed with her Second Amendment rights. I'd have liked a liberal woman who had that. But yeah, no, I guess she got it wrong because she's an idiot.
It's one of those things where I like both of them, because obviously had she been like, I just love my Second Amendment rights, and she just started popping people off, that would have been consistent. But I did kind of piss myself at the movie hanging a lampshade on all of the terrible things that it said, and then being like, First Amendment, freedom of speech.
Yeah, okay, yeah, no, it worked. And I guess my one wasn't a joke, whereas that one was. But yeah, I didn't know where that character was going, because at one point she's like a nurse and like the most wonderful person in the world, and the next moment she's the idiot who can't, like, not only doesn't know what right she's trying to protect, but also doesn't fire the gun of the right that she's trying.
I'm going to make a personal closing point, and then I'll defer to you. But
sure.
Speaking of that which was ridiculous, obviously a lot of the setup, a lot of exposition, a lot of dumbness, but I said this to you today, and as usual, he gets thrown off the case for doing hugely illegal things in the pursuit of the mystery, and then he resolves the case illegally with his private detective father and his like pimp private detective grandfather. And then he obviously kills loads of people in the process without any kind of government authorization. And then they applaud him when he comes back into the FBI, and he goes to give him his badge back, and like he refuses. And I've never understood this thing where if you get thrown off the case and then you solve that case even more illegally than when you were illegally solving it while you were actually a government agent, why?
Because now you have no authority to do it at all, and also you're going to do purely illegal things.
And then they concede and they say, well, even though what you just did was twice or even 100 times as bad as what you did when you were employed here, you did succeed, and the ends justify the means. So here's your job back and a promotion. Rush Hour, iRobot, Shaft 2019.
I do honestly believe it's just like some sort of like cripplingly obsessed obsession with Americans, like, dynamic individualism.
Oh yeah. You get thrown
like-
out of the government body, you fix it, and then they say, "No, wait, please
Yeah,
come
exactly.
back."
And then it's almost like sort of like Rand's like last fuck you is that there's like if you prove the body wrong, it just accepts you back.
That's actually a really good point. That's in Commando as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's definitely not right, but I guess it does make for good action beats. But yeah, I would love it if it was the other way around. If it was just like, oh, you're like, hell, are you welcome back here?
That's actually what happens in
'cause-
Keanu.
Because it might as well happen that way because he doesn't accept it anyway. Like, there's not, do we really need to respect him that little bit more by him rejecting the job?
And walking out in the same clothes as his father and grandfather
That was my
to go
favorite
do
part.
more. Yeah, I love that.
I would love to. I would. Yeah, no, that worked nicely. Like I said, I think that's why I wanted Grandfather to be in it earlier. I think he really completed the ensemble and gave like the dynamic, something it was missing with just the two of them.
You've said to me before, if the worst thing you can say about something is that you wanted more of it, then that's a pretty good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And with Shaft Senior, what's his name, Richard Roundtree, he made me piss myself so much every time he said anything. That's not so bad,
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I will mention two closing points. I think
Sure.
is my last one. I think I actually I know the wife of Middle Shaft wasn't given much to do in this film, but I did actually quite like her rant in the bathroom. I thought that was fine and funny. It made me wish that she'd probably been in a bit more of it, and I liked her bit at the end as well. I thought that both of those were fine. The history of this film, and I've been trying to look into, because it was originally scheduled for cinematic release, and then it didn't, and Netflix buy it for something between 6 to 7 million, and no one really knows why, and what went wrong. Do you think it didn't hit cinemas because of its message? What happened there?
It would be. I don't ever want us to stoop to the level of kind of like YouTube.
I don't want to say
right?
censorship or anything, but
No,
it's
of
interesting
course.
to me.
No, it is interesting, but the thing is, like, so I was going to say, I don't want to stoop to the level of like the YouTube right-leaning shock jock. And the thing is even though it would be easy for us to conclude that the fact that Shaft is this kind of almost like embarrassingly anti-millennial, like anti-woke, and obviously it doesn't even make its arguments well, so it's not like it would be a particularly easy thing to stand by, but that would have been clear from the script stage, so I'm not really sure how. I don't want to immediately say that they produced it, looked at it, and then thought, oh no, the libs aren't going to love this, we're going to trigger the libs. Because surely that would have been apparent from the get-go. So,
well, what I'm thinking though is obviously you make a film to sell it, and I'm wondering if maybe no company wanted to actually push it through, like to.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know, because I can imagine that they powered on ahead with it, and then maybe they couldn't find a buyer, and Netflix were like, well, we'll take it, like we can sell anything.
That makes a bit more sense. It's just the last time this happened, I know with Annihilation, a studio did make it, but then they dumped it on Netflix. But I guess
Yeah, well, I was
maybe
thinking
it was
like
different.
Holmes and Watson and stuff maybe. I know they in the end of Netflix didn't even want that. So, but yeah, it's it's just interesting to me, and obviously like the talent of the people involved really strange. Like you said, the Fantastic Four director made this.
Yep.
His next project is Tom and Jerry,
Jesus Christ.
which I
I
hope
wonder
has
if that's going to be so anti-woke.
I hope has many of the same values that this film did. Yeah, I think considering we went to watch this basically as like, oh man, this will be terrible joke. I think it had more. We had more to talk about than we thought we would, and that's pretty good.
Definitely.
Samuel L. Jackson giving a sort of like a better performance than I've seen from him in a while. I think as well. I feel like.
He seemed way more involved than he has done for ages. Yeah.
He's essentially that same fucking schlock problematic guy that Quentin Tarantino cast fucking 30 years ago at this point.
I won't elaborate loads on this, but while I was watching this movie, I was like, I know that Tarantino will watch this, and I bet he fucking loves it.
He was very happy to see this part of his adolescence back, and he will probably delight in the poor reception that it gets as well.
Yeah, because it'll make him liking it even cooler.
Exactly.
All right, nice.
And that might be one of the next ones we do. That's up pretty soon. Oh my god.
I can't wait to do that. It's going to be brilliant.
Yes. Well, thank you for listening to our opinions on Shaft. You can watch it now on Netflix.
Do that, and then
we'd
also
probably
like
recommend it.
and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe.
The bus! Ha ha! Ho ho!